Welcome to The World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
I'm Kirsty Bedford, journalist, editor and travel writer.
And I'm Belinda Jackson, author, travel journalist and columnist, and we're your weekly co-hosts. Welcome back to The World Awaits. How are you all?
Hi everyone, how was your week, Belle?
Flat out. I've got family, I have just left for Cairo, deadlines that are threatening to crush me, but the high point, I did finally manage to get to eat at Big Esso, which is a restaurant in Fed Square here in Melbourne, which is one of the best Australian dining experiences I've had for a very long time. Kirsty, what I love about when I go out and eat is when I learn something while I'm eating. So if you're not familiar with Big Esso, this restaurant, the chef and the owner is Nornie Bero, who is from the Torres Strait Islands, at the most northerly point of Australia, basically spitting distance to PNG. So the lunch was with Cunard Cruise Line because Nornie is doing a guest chefing appearance on the QE2 when it returns to Australian waters early next year. And this is the menu she'll be serving up. And let me say, if you are sailing on any of those cruises that she's cooking on, book your seat. The food was incredible. I'm a huge fan of learning while I eat, and I like to think I'm pretty good with Indigenous Australian ingredients, but her work was next level. We had things like fine slices of rare emu. There was coral trout in a lemon myrtle beurre blanc.
Yum.
So good. The fish was divine. It was amazing. There's things like scallops. She was making a caviar with warrigal greens, and the most simple thing on the menu was just the damper, but it was made with saltbush flour and a golden syrup butter. It was phenomenal. Kirsty, you really got to put this one on your list. So that was a highlight of my week. The rest of it's just been work and blah. But yeah, what about you, Kirsty? What was your highlight?
My highlight was probably seeing my story about blue zones in signature luxury travel and style. I mean, you never get tired of seeing your stories in print. I don't know what it is about print. I love seeing my stories in print magazines. And it's in the mags and newsstands now. So the stories about, which we have touched on before for regular listeners, but I was really fortunate to cycle right through a blue zone when I went to Sardinia. So basically, if you scroll back to episode 52, you'll be able to hear a little bit about it. But it's basically an area where people live the longest, but not just the longest, they actually are the healthiest. So it was really interesting to hear what their secrets were to a long life. And Sardinia actually has, interestingly, a few areas that are blue zones. So when it was first named a blue zone, it was the central part of Sardinia. But I actually cycled through the latest blue zone area called Toluda, which is actually in the south. And it was only named blue zone status in November last year.
So that's just like piles of 100-year-old people out walking and gardening. That's right, yeah.
Well, I mean,
having a great 100, right? Not sitting in a nursing home and fading away. That's it. What are the secrets? What are the secrets to this long life? I mean, they are in Italy. Does that mean no wine?
So there are just hundreds of old people walking around the streets.
I just can't imagine what a blue zone looks like. You know, it's got a sign up when you go through saying
no,
healthy old people.
It doesn't, but they should have a sign up. It's just a really quaint little pretty Italian village, tucked away in the hinterland, but just a couple of k's from the coast, and stunning Mediterranean beaches with the colours that we all expect to see, and yeah, just really pretty and lovely, and it's just back to basics really. So I think that's, and so I mean, certainly I met a few old people there, but there were other people. Although it wasn't busy, it's never busy in these little towns in Sardinia in the south, so it's a really quiet place to go. So we didn't bump into a whole heap of people, but I did talk to some of them, and there is wine, but it's in moderation. So like I said before, it's sort of basically about getting life back to basics. So cooking from scratch. They didn't eat much meat at all, so it was rare to have meat. And one of the big things has been connected to family and friends, and also getting out in the fresh air on a daily basis. So in the garden or in nature, and they all worked from a really young age. So whether that's to do with being out and about in the land, and being healthy and strong in the sunshine, back like what we were told to do when we were kids. or some other reason. But and also they were all really happy. So they were seeking sort of contentment over conflict, which I just love. So, and geography also plays a big part. So, obviously if you're living in the middle of a really big city and you're going to have more access to fast foods and probably be more stressed, then that's not the sort of lifestyle that they live. They don't have a really stressy lifestyle. It's all island time. And as one centenarian told me, it's also probably good luck.
Do you know what? I reckon they're probably not journalists either. I mean, there's something to be said for living a simpler life and being content, which would definitely reduce your stress levels, which, as we all know, plays havoc with your health. But yeah, so I'd be curious as to what their jobs were. I mean, were you a gardener for all of your life, or were you running, the monetary fund? Or
they actually had really interesting, varied jobs. So one was he was a really high engineer during the war, and then someone else she was a tailor, and then so there was varying jobs. So I think it's more about the way they grew up and the lifestyle that they led, and then they've come back to that. So they've spent a lot of their life living in these smaller towns where it's just back to basics. Just get back to cooking and eating well and getting lots of fresh air and being happy. So So basically, anyway, this week we are talking about some of the best places to live. So that
we all want to live to 100, so we've all got to move there.
Blue zones.
Yeah, so we're all going to move there and make new blue zones, right?
So we're going to tell you the countries that ranked as the most livable cities in 2024, because even if you can't live there, these are obviously places that you want to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Global Livability Ranking is a yearly assessment published by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and ranks 173 global cities for their urban quality of life based on stability, healthcare, culture and environment, as well as education and infrastructure.
So top of the list this year was Vienna, named the world's most livable city for a third year running. And Western Europe has retained its position as the most livable region in the world, with Copenhagen, Zurich and Geneva all making it in the top 10. And Copenhagen was actually second, followed by Zurich. So Copenhagen doesn't actually surprise me. I mean, I was lucky enough to be there last year, and God, what a city, so easy to get around, and it's small, pretty river and amazing cafes with mouth-watering pastries. That's rated by pastries.
Well, but hang on. Melbourne came in fourth, and we've got pretty good pastries too. So, but Melbourne's always been the Vienna and Melbourne have always had this competition, I think, for most livable city.
I thought you were going to say over pastries.
No. Although we do have the best croissants outside Paris, according to Anthony Bourdain. Remember, of course, if you go to noon, if you can get there before the queues come in. So we do have some good pastries. Sydney, sorry, Sydney, but we beat you again. Sydney came in seventh, but Melbourne did actually drop a spot this year. It was in third place in 2023, which I was quite surprised at because, we not long come out of COVID. But it's still in the top 5. And living here, I think, do we deserve to be in the top 3? I mean, infrastructure is a bit shaky. There's no train to the airport. Come on, people!
I know. Oh my God. I have a train to the airport and we still get in the top 5.
Nobody knows.
And fifth spot was Calgary in Canada, followed by Geneva in Switzerland. And as we said, Sydney came in 7th.
And then Vancouver, Osaka, which I think Osaka probably got in there because takoyami, right? The deep fried octopus balls that were invented in Osaka, and you just like 11 o'clock in the morning. That's all. Everyone just wanders around eating deep fried octopus. I'm like, take me to Osaka. Love it. What a great place.
Wonder what category of judging that fits under.
I think that's in the contentment and
the one with the pastries.
The pastries one. Yeah, this is Osaka's answer to pastries, right? But number 10, Auckland, cough up. What is it about the pastries? And why did Auckland come in on the top 10?
I hate to speak poorly of my homeland, but
let's go.
Really,
Auckland homeland.
Auckland really surprises me. I mean, the transport there is shocking, and there's no, it is absolutely shocking. there's no train system. They tried to start one, and no one uses it because it's so infrequent. And not really particularly safe. And also, the bus system's okay, but I mean, you know, you can only fit so many people on a bus. So everybody drives in Auckland. So literally there's always single cars everywhere. So, and it's really expensive, like comparable to Melbourne for food and general living. It's actually very expensive, but it is a very lovely place. Look, it's like a mini Sydney, and just if you don't mind it raining all the time.
Well, I've got to say, every time we have friends coming over from New Zealand, hello Jenny, they are always run straight to the fruit and veg section in Woolies and just like devour whole watermelons in their hotel rooms and stuff because they can't believe
berries. Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the rain is a tricky one. But despite what people might think, we don't typically get a huge amount of rain here in Melbourne. But we do get those swinging variations from weather from summer to winter. I mean, 4 to 40 is pretty extreme. But would I live anywhere else? Well, unless someone's offering me a pied-à-terre in Paris, maybe a little mountain lodge on my own tropical island somewhere warm. I mean, I'm here. I'm listening. People just email me hello@worldawaits.au.
You're listening to The World Awaits. We'd love it if you could leave us a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform. This week we're headed to Norway. I'm chatting with Torunn Tronsvang from UpNorway, who explains why travellers need to step beyond the scenery and go deeper into the culture to explore Norway's burgeoning food scene and local Indigenous culture. Welcome to the show, Torunn.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have you on The World Awaits. Let's start by telling us a bit about how you got into travel.
Absolutely. I got into travel when I was a teenager. By the time I had my first journey to Spain, the first time I was on a plane was actually after my confirmation. I was 15, and I used the savings that I'd gotten as presents for my confirmation to go on a trip with my friend and neighbor. And that basically took 15 years of my life before I flew anywhere. But after that, I was bit by the travel bug, continued then to Australia on a rotary youth exchange the year after for a year. And after that, the travel has just kept on happening.
So tell us about how you got into launching UpNorway.
Yeah, that is a short, long story. Of course, I have my background from the travel industry, and I had spent several years working in places like Dubai, Switzerland, Maldives, Thailand, and then Bhutan, and encountered many people who I thought were ideal travelers for Norway, and they even expressed an interest for Norway, yet they never ended up going there. And then when I moved back to Norway, started working as a consultant, traveling the country up and down, east and west, I realized that the best of what we have is not what is being sold to international travelers and not what is being marketed. So I thought someone should start a company and digital platform, because this was about the time where everything now was happening digitally. This was back in 2013-14. I thought someone should start a company that took advantage of these new digital sales and marketing channels, and created a two-sided platform where we would connect travelers with a tailored journey based on their very unique interests and preferences. But of course, the risk or the willingness to take risk within travel is not very high, and I struggle to get someone to sort of like my idea and be willing to start this or start it with me. So I ended up doing my MBA, and as my master thesis, I wrote about UpNorway as a business idea. And in that thesis, the potential for such a company was just so huge. So I was made aware of the fact that the Norwegian Research Council had established a funding scheme, where they said that students who wanted to start their own business could apply to get 1 million Norwegian. In Australian, I think that's about 100,000. And I applied, got the funding, and then basically quit the job that I was currently in and started UpNorway. And this was now back in 2016. And since then, we've now grown into a team of 18 people.
Amazing. What a great story. So what was it what was this big gap that you thought was missing when you had that original idea?
Yeah, that's a good question, because at that time, most of what was sold to international travelers was the coastal voyager called Hurtigruta, which basically cruises the coast from Bergen to Kirkenes. It was Oslo, and Oslo has changed a lot since back then. And it was the typical Norway in a nutshell journey from Oslo to Bergen, including trains and the fjord cruise in our UNESCO heritage protected fjord landscape. And there was a huge lack of creative marketing concepts. So everyone who was in tourism and travel were just screaming for someone to come and just create something that was more creative, more appealing. And rather than continuing to market based on geography, like Norway would say, okay, now we're going to target Germans, now we're going to target French, we'd say, let's look at niches. Let's target those who want to go fishing, those who want to go hiking, those who are interested in architecture, food, for example. And then you can make much more interesting travel offers and really create something personal. And that was completely missing.
And you know, Norway has obviously long been known about its scenery, but what are some of the other things that you discovered or thought that you wanted to offer people? I mean, I know earlier when we'd spoken once before, you were saying that because obviously back then, you know, there was a lot of talk about people wanting to immerse in local communities and tread a bit lightly. People are starting to become aware of it, weren't they? Back just then, that was sort of just the sort of the beginnings of it.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, people do come for the Norwegian landscapes and scenery, but what they talk about when they leave, at least when they travel with us, is the people. So the people they meet when they travel is the highest contributor to people just really being, I guess, a little bit transformed by these journeys and inspired. So for us, we really make sure that we know all the partners and the places that we send our guests to. And we want to introduce them to stories. We want them to learn. We want them to understand the Norwegian way of life, you know, the Scandinavian lifestyle, how we live up here in the north. And we introduce them to that through making sure that they have encounters with some of our favorite guides, some of our favorite farmers, and also making sure that we don't put them in a big chain hotel, but rather choose a small boutique hotel, privately owned, privately run, where you can connect to the host, you can connect to locals, connect to other guests that are there, and sort of have more of a purpose when they travel rather than just traveling to scratch the surface of where they are. So that is an important thing. And then to sort of talk about what does Norway have more than nature? Well, I think especially what I discovered when I met you in Australia earlier this year is that most Australians, they have an impression that the reason to travel to Norway is to go there on a cruise. But there is so much more, because Norway now, I think, is probably the world's most booming culinary destination, for example. The number of Michelin-starred restaurants are increasing every single year. And just last month, we got our second 3-star Michelin restaurant, and it's happening outside of Oslo, the capital. It's happening all over the country. And I think that is really, really interesting. And many of the new concepts that are coming are all about utilizing all of nature's resources fully, rather than just trying to use the best part of the animal, the best part of something, and end up with a lot of waste. So I think the philosophy behind what's happening in Norway is also as interesting as experiencing nature, for example, and just looking at the surface.
And is that something that you're seeing translated to other areas as well? Like, that sustainable approach?
Like food is one area, but you also have now that, like if you look at what's happening on the art scene, I think that's a really good example, because you have art, architecture, design is now showing up everywhere, and it's showing up not just to stand there as individual pieces of art, but they're there to convey a story. They're there to sort of add to natural landscapes. They're there to bring a cultural history back to life. And examples of this can be our 18 Norwegian scenic routes that are scenic routes where the Norwegian state and road authorities have just invested millions, actually billions, into beautiful art design and architecture along the roads. It could be viewpoints, it could be amazing toilet facilities, of all things. And they're there to make people stop, to travel slow, and to try to soak up what is happening around here. And there's one architect that many people travel to Norway for called Peter Sumtor, who has a couple of amazing pieces of architecture that are there to tell really important stories of our history. And these are things that people normally would have just driven past unless they were encouraged to stop and encouraged to then spend some time with the guide to really learn what is behind the surface. And I think another good example, Kirsty, is if you look at our indigenous Sami culture, for example, there are people in Norway, just like the Aborigines in Australia, that have had some of the same challenges that indigenous people have had everywhere. And in Norway, these Sami people, they're mostly based in the north. And now their stories are coming back to life. People are really, in a much larger degree than before, respecting what they have done to preserve nature, what they have, like why they are herding reindeer, what do reindeer mean to nature, and what does nature mean to reindeer. And people are intrigued by this now, we're curious, and they're willing to listen to the stories that the people have to tell. And these type of encounters really, really make a big impression. And they're important, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly an area that's growing. Awareness is growing of wanting to understand and immerse in local cultures regardless where you go. We talked a little bit about women we had previously about women in Norway, and some women over there doing some incredible things. What are some of the things that, as a traveller, if I wanted to be involved in products and going to places which are run by women?
Oh, there are many to choose from, which is a good thing. I think some of our favorite women, if I were to mention some, we have one lady called Lindis. She is based in an area close to the Sognefjord called Luster, where she has an old house on the top of a hill overlooking a lake, llamas in her garden, and she's converted this house into a small boutique hotel where she hosts guests. She also takes part in the cooking. She'll takes part in the storytelling. She invites guests to join her in her garden where she grows edible flower, herbs, vegetables, etc. And she teaches people how to use these for various purposes. She also does her own skincare products made from these natural materials. She takes people into these beautiful villages surrounding her house. She hooks people up with other guides, with concerts in nature. And, when we send people to her, very often also female travelers who go solo, they come back and it's as if Lindis has become their new best friend. And that is just one example. And we have another couple who runs a mountain lodge in Jotunheimen National Park in Norway. And they are running what's now become Norway's first certified regenerative hotel. And to spend time with Jannike, her name is, and also, of course, her partner Henrik, it's just enlightening because they've taken that village history and culture and brought it back to life. And it comes through in the stories they tell and in all the different methods they use for foraging, fishing, harvesting, preservation, conservation, preparation of food in various ways, etc., and just reusing of old material and giving it new life through new design, for example. We also have some amazing female explorers like Raldiska, Kristin Harila, that can contribute by sharing their stories in various ways and various parts of Norway. Like Raldiska, for example, who was the first Norwegian woman to climb Mount Everest. She talks about what we call kongefølelsen, the king feeling, directly translated, and it's all about what to do to make you feel as if you are on the top of the world, which I think is nice. Yeah.
And are you finding that you're getting more interest in solo female travelers and them also wanting to engage with women like this?
Absolutely. And even from Australia, we see that we're getting solo travelers. We're getting both female and male solo travelers. And I think what we like about the ones coming from Australia is that they stay long. They stay for several weeks in Norway. And that means that you really have the chance to immerse and you can travel long distances, because Norway is a long country. So traveling from the north to the south will take you through different seasons, different landscapes, different climates, and different nature phenomena as well, like the midnight sun and the northern lights. So, and that in general about Australian travelers in Norway who come and travel with us, the fact that they stay long really offers a really unique opportunity to immerse.
Why are more people travelling on their own? Is it because of circumstance and age, or do you think that people feel it's a safe enough destination to do it, or they just don't have a travel companion?
No, I think it could be all of that. I definitely think that people have a stronger desire than earlier to travel alone. I don't think they are, like, Norway is perceived one of the world's safest destinations to travel to. So, of course, that is a big factor. When they travel with us, they also get a digital itinerary, which they download to an app where they can also chat with us when they travel. And to just know that they can reach us whenever they want, wherever they are, is also a big comfort and something that makes them choose us. So that they travel on their own. And what we see is that they manage just fine on their own, but they get so excited by what they experience. So they'll just tell us about the experiences that they're having. So we love catering to solo travelers. That's definitely something that we truly enjoy. And I think that it's not as if all the solo travelers that we get are single or don't have a travel companion. It's just that they're at a point in their life where they need some alone time, they want some inspiration, and they choose to do one holiday on their own. And maybe the next holiday is with friends or with a partner or children, etc.
Do you think because we've become more adventurous as travellers, and that's why? Because the long way to go to travel on your own, to go from Australia.
Have you done it?
Not on my own.
No? I think we're becoming more adventurous. I think we're becoming more independent. Like, we've had guests we've helped when we've been told that this is their first solo trip ever. And I think we're trying to be out there to tell people that we're happy to help solo travelers and make them feel safe and comfortable. And if that is something you've dreamt of, something you want to tick off on your bucket list, then, we're here to help, because solo travelers are generally really wonderful people to host, because they are seeking this optimal balance between being to themselves, but also really being able to interact with locals and understanding how local life works. So they're sort of inclined to also be guests that our hosts truly appreciate having there.
And do you think that's why Norway's a great place for solo travellers? Because Norwegians are so, are so prepared to open their, like you were talking about, some of those tour operators people who are being hotel operators who are prepared to open their homes to international guests.
I think that the partners we use, they are kind, they have good hearts, and that is why we use them. So when they have the chance to do something extra or care for someone like a friend rather than a tourist, because we tend to book people in one place for at least 2 nights, but if we can, sometimes even 3 to 4 nights. And that gives you the chance to really establish a connection. And then when people feel that connection, they're willing to go longer to make sure that you're enjoying yourself. And of course, if you're alone, then we'll keep an extra eye on you while you're here, because we know that we want you to feel safe, we want you to feel cared for, and to make sure that you know that if you need anything, you just reach out. And I think in general, I don't think it's just Norwegians, but we're not that many people, and we have the time also to see people for who they are and reach out and hand, if we can. It's harder to do something special for a group of 6 rather than just one.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so what are some of the other growth areas that you're seeing as well as solo travelers?
Well, of course, more people are discovering Norway as a culinary destination. And I think that is something that has to be communicated, because coming here and experiencing Norway for its food, and not just food, but also drinks. And by that, I mean anything from Arctic cider grown by the fjord to whiskey produced on an island outside Norway's western coast to, even some small farms now have started growing wine. We are also the country in the world that are the second largest coffee consumers after Finland. So coffee is a big thing here. The coffee culture is really, really strong. And just eating your way through Norway. And of course, we should also mention the cheese. I don't know, most Australians probably know Will Studd, who made the TV program many years ago on cheese, where he traveled the world to eat cheese, and he's also made shows from Norway. But of course now, since then, Norway has won the World Cheese Awards 3 times since 2016, which means that we're all up there competing against the French and other sort of cheese nations of the world. So that is also sort of, something that shows the quality of what's happening now within our agriculture.
Why do you think culinary is becoming such a big thing? Are people coming? Why are people investing in ensuring that they are producing? Obviously, there's obviously some great chefs now, either coming back or just deciding to launch restaurants in Norway. Or do you think it's more of a collaborative approach because of lots more local producers and them seeing the value in the produce?
I think that many people are seeing that we've moved to a society where there's a lot of materialism and there's been a lot of waste. And I think many are wanting to show the world that you can sort of try to avoid that. But I think most of all what's happening on the culinary scene is like people are seeing resources all over and realizing that they're edible and that they can be transformed to pieces of art. So I think a chef, a sommelier, they're also artists in their own ways. And when the chef and the farmer works together, they're able to really create amazing things. And when the politics and the framework to be able to do creative things with food, with resources, I think that you're really, really laying the foundation to be able to create something great. I think people are, we can also afford now to go out more than we did before. I think people are appreciating flavor, taste, philosophy behind what you consume more than ever. So I think all of this are things that contribute to what we're seeing now, the interest for culinary experiences, for example. And it's not just a meal anymore. It's not just eating to get full. It's all about the experience, about learning what's behind the stories, the food, the drinks tell, and how they function together. So if you look at what's called the restaurant Iris, the salmon eye in the fjord, and this is a restaurant that recently got a Michelin star, and they call their concept for expedition dining. So it's like an expedition experience, the meal on its own. And this just shows that eating now is so much more than just eating to fulfill a basic need.
What are some of the things that you have to try if you come to Norway for food?
Well, cheese, definitely. I think our cider from some of our amazing cider producers. I think that, what else? There's so much. I think if you come in summer, no doubt you have to try our strawberries, because our strawberries, they are left to ripe under the midnight sun. So this means that within the period of time that they grow, they get much more sunlight than they would do other places in Europe, which means that the flavors are intensified. And the same thing happens to our blueberries, our cloudberries. So berries in season is amazing. And the same thing when you have all different types of root vegetables, cabbages, everything that sort of come up when it's ripe and it's seasonal. That is what you really need to try. And now I haven't even started mentioning the seafood, because Norway has now become the world's largest seafood producer. No, sorry, not producer, but exporter. So that means that we're up there on the production side as well, but there's so much good seafood, both shellfish and fish.
Well, I came to Norway for the fjords, but I think I need to come back for the people and the food. So
yeah,
after our chat. So we're running out of time now, but the final question we ask all of our guests is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on your travels?
Yeah, I think bizarre things happen all the time, and it's hard to choose just one, even though you never really sit down to think about bizarre things. But there are moments that have appeared as really, really strange when they happen, but moments that I now treasure when I look back. And one of these moments is when I decided to take the public bus all through Bhutan when I was living in Bhutan. And the bus was full, and a young monk, he came and he sat next to me. And around his neck, he had a string of dried cheese, because this is what they bring to have something to eat on long trips. So he would just share a piece of cheese with me, and you keep it in your mouth and it stays there and it melts for over 2 to 3 hours. And then after he'd given me this little piece of cheese, he just lay down to just sleep on my shoulder.
Oh,
and that's how we travel.
Oh, that's so lovely. Oh, look, it's been so great chatting with you today, and thank you for that beautiful story.
Thank you for taking time to talk to me, Kirsty.
I love how passionate Torunn is about Norway. What an incredible advocate for her country. And it definitely makes you think that there's a lot more to Norway than just those incredible fjords.
Our tip this week is about language apps and how they can help you when you travel, because you only need to go to even some of the most popular holiday destinations like Japan and Italy, where I just was, if you hadn't heard of my cycle around Sardinia, to realise that you need them. Oh my God, did I tell you? I think I did, but do you know Sardinia's got its own language? Yes, and it's apparently based more on Spanish than Italian. How interesting is that? So anyway, Belle's been doing a bit of digging around to bring you the very best in language apps.
Yeah, so some of this is pitched at people who are going to Portugal next week and went, oh my God, I cannot speak a word of Portuguese, so they're sitting in the plane on the way over. Some of the biggest names in language apps are Babbel and Rosetta Stone, and the newcomer, the one that you need if you're going to Lisbon and you're going to arrive tomorrow and you have not a single word, is Duolingo. So there's also Rocket Languages, Mondly. Some have got a free version with ads. Well, Babbel and Rosetta Stone, which are two of the first, are paid subscriptions. Though I note that Rosetta Stone, in the face of stiff competition, has dropped its price considerably in the past few years.
Right. So what's the difference when it comes to usability?
Well, experts I've spoken to say that apps such as Duolingo or Memrise, which is MEMRASE, will give you the vocabulary, but most language experts say you need to take the next step to understand context or have response-based learning rather than just the words. So, you might look at such more immersive methods such as Berlitz's face-to-face lessons, or Preply, which is a platform you jump onto and you find private tutors that can give you one-to-one conversation over Zoom, which is good if you've got a language like, I don't know, like Sardinia has a different language to it. Did you know that, Kirsty? That Sardinia has a different language to others. So sometimes, these apps have all got the basics, the main languages that we want to learn, either German, French, Spanish, that sort of thing. But then in other languages that are ruled by dialects, like Arabic, it has one sort of textbook language, but every country has its own version. So, and you can't always find an app for that sort of thing. So Preply is actually quite a good, tapping into one of the tutors from that country is quite a good option.
Okay, so interestingly, if you want to learn a new language, the US-based language authority, the Foreign Service Institute, grades languages from easiest to the most difficult for native English speakers. And it says that German and the Romance languages, including French, Italian and Spanish, are the easiest to learn, while Mandarin, Chinese and Arabic are among the hardest, which is a shame, as more than 1 billion people speak Mandarin and 250 million speak Arabic. Is that right, Bao?
It is, yeah. I did a little fact check for you. I've got to say, my daughter uses Duolingo. She just pings it for 5 or 10 minutes a day to learn Spanish, which does make her sound a bit like a girly swat, which she absolutely isn't. But she does it because she loves Spanish, the Spanish soccer league. So, that argument against Duolingo is that it will give you a vocabulary, but not the formed phrases and responses that make a conversation. And also, it gets a lot of flack online, because it does make pretty bizarre sentence structures like good morning feet, how are you, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty happy she's doing it, but it's definitely pitched at attention spans that are shortened by social media, and it's like a game thing. It rewards you and it pings you and it sets you up to the next level and that sort of thing. So there is one thing to be said for making language fun. But, you've got to stick to it, really, is I think the key on that one as well. Consistency and going deeper into the language as well.
I think that's so cool that she's doing that, and you've given her such a great love of travel with all the travel she's done with you, and she is not a girly swat, but she is a gorgeous little girl, even though she's not little anymore, and she'll kill me for saying that. Anyway, so she needs to, Yasmin, if you're listening to this, you need to stick to learning.
Auntie Kirsty says.
Because learning, she does love me, because learning even part of a new language is long proven to not just be good for travel, it's also good for your brain, and it helps improve your memory and your focus. I think maybe I should do it too. Maybe I'll go back to, an advance on the tiny amount of French that I learnt at school and used once in a real setting when I was in France in my 20s.
I know I started learning Arabic. Well, I started learning Egyptian Arabic when I first moved there. It was actually the best dialect to use because all of the movies and stuff and songs and recording studios mostly are in Egypt. So everyone to go there and record in that language. So that means everybody from Morocco to the Gulf was listening to that dialect. So everybody can understand it. I can't understand that. I mean, Moroccan is completely different. Too much French in it. But yeah, of course, the best way then to learn a language is by immersion. And that means travel or moving to that country. So the thing that I read to was, and I think this is really true, don't be shy about pulling out at least a few phrases while you're traveling. So, Kirsty, what were some of those that you used in France?
Oh my God, now you're actually putting me on the spot, Belle, but here we go. Come on to Tapel.
Which means,
what's your name?
Well, that's a great one to learn if you're traveling in your 20s and for any time of that matter. So, nice one, Kirsty. It's usually me that gets written in all of the foreign words in our script. I saw you did that to me last week. So we all put the links to those apps that we've mentioned in the show notes, and you can always, make a recording and send us your fabulous new language, although we probably won't be able to understand it given the basis of what we just demonstrated. Next week, we're off to India with my guest, Fiona Caulfield. Fiona is an India specialist, the creator and author of the Love India Guides. She's lived in India for many, many years, travelling that vast country, admiring and documenting its vibrant craft and design industry and just seeking beauty. So she'll chat to us about travelling and planning a trip to India and why you shouldn't cram this vast country into a 2-week holiday. And if you missed it, head back and take a listen to our last episode where Kirsty interviews Julie Jones. She is unstoppable in her efforts to make travel more accessible. And with 1 in 5 Australians living with a disability, it's a cause worth fighting for.
And we'd love it if you could give us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. Click on our profile, scroll down to the bottom to ratings and reviews and hit those 5 stars, please. And if you're on Spotify, go to our main page and click the 3 dots under our photo. And most of all, we'd just love it if you subscribed and were part of our pod family.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods. And where can people find you, Kirsty?
I'm at Kirsty Writes on Instagram. That's KIRSTIE Writes, WRITES. And where can people find you, Belle?
You can find me at globalsalsa.com or on Insta at global_salsa.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.